have read it, I'll read each sentence and tell me whether it's clear. And if it is clear, we go on to the next. If it is not, we can discuss it. So I'm beginning to read, okay? Because we have only three today.
Let me
Archana,
want it, Rankada.
pardon?
Let me want it. I met Nirakadi today.
Yes,
Oh, yes.
yes, my sister's birthday today. Yeah, she has
I met her
completed.
in the ashram today.
Oh, yeah, she has completed 87.
Oh,
Oh,
oh my God.
Yeah, she's okay. She's paralyzed on one side. Her speech is quite badly affected, but she's okay. She is conscious and she understands everything. But her responses are not so good because speech is affected. Okay, so yeah, she went to the ashram today morning. She insisted. Okay, I'm reading each sentence, all right? The Gita is therefore addressed to a fighter, a man of action, one whose duty in life is that of war and protection. War as a part of government for the protection of those who are excused from that duty, debarred from protecting themselves, and therefore at the mercy of the strong and the violent. War, secondarily, and by a moral extension of this idea, for the protection of the weak and the oppressed, and the maintenance of right and justice in the world. Now, this is a very interesting observation that Srebda is giving, and we'll dwell a little on it because it's very interesting. Modern war and ancient war in India. Okay, because the nature of the war, he has already told you that war with hatred and with rancor and with killing, destruction is certainly not good. But you can't escape violence in the physical world. Okay? There can be violence in the physical world without hatred. When someone attacks me, I have the full right to protect myself back. And if necessary, I can even kill my opponent. If a snake comes to bite me, I have the right to kill it. Okay? But I should not have anger. I should not have disturbance in the being. That's exactly what the divine does when he is destroying the asura. Okay? And besides that, there are many other interesting things here. That's why we'll have a look at it. And Srimdi is saying war, war, war 2-3 times, explaining what sort of war is the Gita, the Gita's Kurukshetra battle. So the first thing that is saying very clearly, who is Arjuna? Arjuna is not a philosopher. He is not a thinker. He has said that very clearly earlier. He is a normal man identified with his body, mind, life, but great ideals. He is ready for the spiritual life, but he is not a spiritual personality. Okay? Gita is therefore a fighter, a man of action. A man of action is one who is engaged in the fighting mainly, but he has got values. Okay? And Kshatriya, one whose duty in life is that of war and protection. War, destruction when necessary, and protection also when necessary. Now he is explaining war 2 times. War, war, he is saying two times. First time, war is a part of government. Okay? It's part of your, when you are in government, you have to exercise both destruction as well as protection. So war is a part of government for the protection of those who are excused from that duty. That's very interesting. This is what I am going to discuss after we finish the sentence. Debarred from protecting themselves and therefore at the mercy of the strong and the violent. Okay? So you have to protect those who are not Kshatriyas, those who are Brahmins, those who are Vaishyas, those who are and yeah, and also the Shudras. You have to protect them. War, secondly, and by moral extension of this idea, for the protection of the weak and the oppressed, and for the maintenance of right and justice in the world. What could be a better description of what a Kshatriya's duty is than this? Okay, wonderful. He's told you exactly what are the duties of a Kshatriya. He has to protect the weak, he has to protect those who are not soldiers. Now that's the interesting part. If you remember in the Gita, in the Mahabharata, war begins with the sunrise, okay, with the blowing of conches. Now we begin the fight. Just like a boxing match, the bell rings and then you come to attack each other. Good morning, Shilpa.
Good morning, Ranganath. Sorry for being late.
No problem. Get the text, okay? It is, we are reading, the Gita is therefore addressed. So, what about, so, and not only that, at the end of the war, at the end of the day when the sun has set, again the conches are blown and the war comes to an end. No more fighting. It's a fixed period. And who fights who? Kshatriya is fighting Kshatriya. The Vaishyas and the Sudras are not included in it. Today, what about war in today? The bombs are being thrown and everybody is being killed. Children are being killed. Look at the difference. Okay. So this is exactly how the morality of war in India was so well understood. Okay. Whereas today in war it is not like that. You attack everybody. Of course, the ideal is there that you should not attack everybody and you should attack only those who are warriors, those who are soldiers you can attack and kill, but not civilians. But do they stick to that? Certainly not. They don't. And that is the reason why the Geneva Conventions came into the picture. Why should the normal population suffer because one government is fighting another government? So this is a big difference. So you can see how magnificent the conception of war was in India long ago. No? You think about it, it's fantastic. And not only that, at the end of the war, after the sunset, there is no enmity between the two parties. If you remember, the Pandavas used to go to the Kauravas and even to their camp and talk also. So this is the nature of the war in India. Okay, so he has defined it so well. Whereas war today is not like that at all, and that's why they tried to bring in some laws. Geneva Conventions came into the picture. I don't know whether it came in before the First World War or after the First World War. I don't remember. But anyway, the Geneva Convention, you can't kill a prisoner. You have to take care of him. You have to treat an officer in a different way. Okay, you can't use gas. You can't use toxic gas to kill because it will kill everybody, not only soldiers. You can't plant now. The idea is that you can't plant
Mines.
ground mines. Yeah, mines you can't put because even today, since nearly 70, 80 years after the Second World War, when the farmers are tilling their land, they step on a mine and then either they die or their legs get blown off. So it is something so cruel, no fault of theirs, but it happens. So in modern warfare, the Geneva Convention says that you should not use landmines anymore. So they're trying to make war a more moral and more reasonable thing. Okay, but I don't think it's succeeding much in modern times. But in ancient times, it was there. That was the idea. Okay, ideal only. Okay. It doesn't always happen. For instance, we know that when Ashoka was spreading Buddhism, he saw the massacre and he was changed. Now, I don't know about that in history, whether non-Kshatriyas were also killed. I'm not sure of that. But anyway, in the Gita, it is very, very clear that there is a system and a war has got a morality behind it. Okay, so that's the interesting part. Now, I'll continue with the rest of the next para. The next sentence. For all these ideas, the social, the practical, the moral, and the chivalrous enter into the Indian conception of the Kshatriya. There you are. Okay, the Indian conception of the Kshatriya. The man who is a warrior and a ruler by function and a knight and king in his nature. That's his nature. That's what a real Kshatriya should be. Okay. But also you must note one thing, that this caste system in India was a very deep theory, very deep principle. It is not what the British made it out to be. I don't know if you know, but there was a plan by the British, They said how to weaken the Indians. When they came into India and they saw that there is so much of wealth and so much of, they could not convert the Indians very easily into the Christian religion. They tried very hard, but they couldn't do it. So they cooked up many plans. First of all, their education system was to only produce clerks and nothing more. Slowly that is disappearing now with our educational institutions. And the second thing was they planned to make and misinterpret the caste system and make the Brahmins and the Shudras and hate each other. Okay, and that is the legacy we have been saddled with. That's why in Tamil Nadu, those who are in power are the lower castes in Tamil Nadu. They are not the Kshatriyas, they are not the Brahmins at all. Whereas actually in Tamil Nadu, the Brahmins are the ones who are the industrialists, the educators. But they hate them, the government in Tamil Nadu. It's not politics I'm discussing, it's the social structure which I'm discussing. So, this is the Indian conception of the Kshatriya. Okay, so he has to protect the weak. So, he has to be there. Although the more general and universal ideas of the Gita are those which, in fact, there's even a date. The British actually planned this thing. Okay, there's a date also in history where they had a conference and they decided that this is what they would do. They would spread the idea that the Shudra has to be hated by the higher caste, and they inculcated this idea into, because at that time India was in its downward movement. There was a lot of illiteracy, there was the feeling that the world is unreal, there was no attention given to the physical world. So this is what happened at that time. Okay. For all these ideas, the social and practical, the moral and the chivalrous, enter into the Indian conception of the Kshatriya. Another very interesting thing is, if you see, okay, some of the greatest spiritual figures in India are the Kshatriyas, not the Brahmins. Okay, Sriyamda was a Vaishya. Okay, Sri Krishna was a Kshatriya. Okay, Janaka was a Kshatriya. They are all they're doing the function of the Brahmins. So it was very flexible. My point is that it was flexible. That rigidity was brought in by the British. Okay, so I go on. For all these ideas, the social and practical, the moral and the chivalrous, enter into the Indian conception of the Kshatriya. A man who is a warrior and ruler by function, and a knight and a king in his nature. Although the more general and universal ideas of the Gita are those which are the most important to us, we ought not to leave out of consideration altogether the coloring and trend they take from the peculiar Indian culture and social system. This is Chatur Varnya, the division of the natural abilities of the social structure in India. Okay, the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and each one has got a definite function. And those functions are so interesting and so related to the divine principles. The Brahmin, Maheshwari, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati. These are all related to the caste system. It's a very, very deep philosophy. That system differed from the modern in its conception. The peculiar Indian culture and social system is talking of the Chatur Varnya. That system differed from the modern in its conception. To the modern mind, man is a thinker, worker, producer and fighter all in one, the modern man. And the tendency of the social system is to lump all these activities and to demand from each individual his contribution to the intellectual, economical and military life and the needs of the community without paying any heed to the demands of his individual nature and temperament. Now this is exactly what happens in Europe. Everybody has to have 2 years military training. Okay, it's compulsory. But in India, we don't have that at all because the conception is quite different. Even if you are an artist, even if you are a scholar, even if you are you have to get military training in case your country goes to war. One of the reasons is that low population. That's one of the reasons. Even today, the average population of European nations is around 50 million. 50, 60, a little more it differs. Germany, after integration of East and West Germany, comes about 100 million. That's maximum. In India, we have 1 billion. Okay. So this is what Assembly is saying that now. Let's look at the words. The Indian idea, Assembly is saying, to the modern man, man is a thinker, corresponds to the Brahmin. Worker, Shudra. Producer, Vaishya. And a fighter, Kshatriya. All in one. Even if you are a student of information technology, you have to have 2 years training. Even if you are an artist, you will have to have 2 years training. Unless you can give a reason, I am not well, my health is not good, or I am lame, or I am blind, then you are excused. Otherwise, you have to go through this. Okay? I know of a French boy who escaped military training by pretending to be mad. He told me that himself. He is in Auroville now, that boy. So, in India, it is not like that. Only the fighter, only the Kshatriya has to fight the Kshatriya. Okay? The artist doesn't have to go to war. No. It's not like that in today's world. It's absolutely the opposite in Europe. So, I go to the next sentence. The ancient Indian civilization laid peculiar stress on the individual nature, tendency, temperament, and sought to determine by it the ethical type, the function and place in the society. Okay? So the Brahmin is supposed to impart knowledge to the others and wisdom. The Kshatriya is supposed to protect the weak and govern in the right way and bring justice. Okay? The Vaishya is the one who has to attend to the prosperity of the nation. Okay? He has to be the producer. He has to bring prosperity to the nation. And the Shudra is the one who supplies the labor, the humble, meek labor. Okay? So this is the system. That's why I'm saying ethical type, function and place in the society. So it is so well organized. Nor did it consider man primarily as a social being or the fullness of his social existence as the highest ideal, but rather as a spiritual being in process of formation and development of his social life, ethical life, play of temperament, and exercise of function as means and stages of spiritual formation. Whoever you are, spiritual development is not denied to you. You may be a Brahmin, you may be a Kshatriya, you may be a Vaishya, and you may also be a Shudra. But the spiritual development in your own Swadharma and Swabhava. That's the interesting part. Okay? You don't need to have the Swabhava or something else. If you are a Shudra, through that Shudratvam, okay, you can attain to the divine. That's an interesting concept in India, which is not there so much in the West. Okay, so depending on your, there's a very interesting case of in the 14th or 15th century, long ago in France, there was a cook. Okay, there is a cook, and he was constantly concentrating on Christ, and he had the experience of Christ through love and devotion. So the Shudra also can attain that. Even in the Chandogya Upanishad, there is mention of a cart puller, one who is pulling a cart, but he is a Brahman knower, Jnani. Okay? So we have all these. And in India, plenty of Kshatriyas are all actually Brahmin by temperament. They are all spiritual leaders. What about the Vaishyas? They also can have. Okay? In Europe also you have Saint Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis of Assisi, his father was a rich merchant selling silk cloths. Okay? And the son, Francis, was selling clothes in the shop. So he is a Vaishya, but he also became a Brahmin knower. A Brahman knower, sorry. So this is the Indian idea that you need not change your profession or your nature, whatever you are. In your own nature, you can realize the divine. Okay? I'm reading the sentence again. The ancient Indian civilization laid peculiar stress on the individual nature, the swabhava of the individual, tendency, temperament, and sought to determine by it the ethical type, the moral type, the function and place in the society. Nor do you consider man primarily as a social being or the fullness of its social existence as the highest ideal, which is there in in the West. Okay, you have to have you have to be aware of your social existence, and you can do the best for society. That's it. Charity and philanthropy is their highest ideal, not the spiritual. Okay, social as the highest ideal, but rather as a spiritual being. In India, every human being is a divine in essence, as a spiritual being in process of formation and development. And his social life, ethical law, play of temperament, and exercise of function as means and stages of spiritual formation. So now again you have got the next sentence. Thought and knowledge, war and government, production and distribution, labor and service were carefully differentiated functions of society, each assigned to those who were naturally called to it, and providing the right means by which they could individually proceed towards a spiritual development and self-perfection. So, without mentioning the caste system, Srimanda has told you what it is. Thought and knowledge for the Brahmin, war and government for the Kshatriya, production and distribution for the Vaishya, labor and service for the Shudra. It's not that they are superior or inferior, it's a division of labor. Okay? Just as the concept also is supposed to be in the ashram, that if you are a trustee, of course it is misinterpreted. Everybody goes and falls at their feet. There is no need to do that. They only have a function. Okay, the function goes on differing, that's all. Someone who is washing dishes in the dining room is not necessarily inferior. He's just doing. Through that work also you can attain to the divine. Okay. I think I told you one day the story of that man from Patna. No? He was a father, he was a judge. If you remember the story, but I'll repeat it. Very interesting. Yeah, you remember the story, no?
Yes.
Shyam Kumar's father. Okay. Shyam Kumar was in charge of the school for perfect eyesight, and he was very interesting boy himself. Anyway, his father, he was a judge. He came to the ashram. Quickly, I'll tell you the story. You may remember or you may not remember. And he said, I am here for 15 days. I can do some work. So they said, fine. I think mother or whoever. And in those days, mother used to give. Later on, it was
Ravindraji.
Ravindraji who used to give the work, assign the work. And later on, now it is Chitradi who assigns the work. So at that time, mother told him, you can go to the dining hall and wipe the dishes which have been boiled in hot water. Then they have to be wiped and reused. So he went there and he was a little offended. I'm a judge, okay, at the highest level of society, and I'm being asked to do a menial work. Anyway, he went and he said, when he was wiping the dish, he saw Srimdu's picture in the dish. So, it's very, very apt to what we are discussing here. Even the Sutra's work can get you to the divine. Of course, this man was, you can say in a certain sense, Brahmin, but he was doing the work of a Shudra, and there also he could get that. Okay, so it's and very clearly in the Gita you have a phrase which says, better to even die in your own swabhava and swadharma rather than do the work in a paradharma, because there it will lead only to destruction. Okay, very clear. But you have to understand swadharma and swabhava in the right way. It is not you are a doctor, you are an engineer, it's not that. It's your psychological setup. Your psychological nature is the swabhava and the swadharma. The swadharma is not medicine or engineering or being a merchant. No, economist. No, it's not that. It's your swabhava. So better to indulge in remain in your own swabhava rather than in somebody else's swadharma. That's what the Gita says very clearly. Actually,
But Ranganath, can we change the swabhava by yoga or spirituality?
you don't need to do that. That's the whole point. No? Through your swabhava, whatever you are, you can, whatever is your nature, through that you can go to the divine. You don't need to change the swabhava. You can change. I think you're confusing between swadharma and the profession. That's why I told you, this swadharma is to remain entrenched in your own nature and seek the divine through your own nature.
Yes,
If
Rangada, see, if my nature is emotional and all, so I go through the
Bhakti,
bhakti yoga, but then I attain also jnana, then it becomes changed, no? Then you become a jnani or something? No.
uh, that in Srimad Yoga says ultimately you can become a jnani through that. Okay.
Okay.
But the traditional knowledge says that you will have bhakti for the divine. And it is
Okay.
so wonderful that normally you get stuck there. But
Hmm.
Hindu philosophy says, yes, you go through any path, through jnani path or through bhakti path or through even service, karma yoga.
Hmm.
You ultimately, if you are interested, you will get all at the end of the journey.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. But don't get
So
confused with.
that changes your swabhava? No.
No, no, the
No.
swabhava is
Okay.
something that you are assigned for. Okay.
Acha.
The divine says this soul will have, his nature will be that of mercy and kindness. Okay.
Hmm.
Then that is the swabhava. Another soul, the divine will tell you that you are going to be a fighter, you are going to have bravery and courage. That is his swabhava. Okay. Or somebody else says you will have the possibility of creating wealth and splendor and beauty. That is the swabhava.
So
So,
no, so when King Ashoka, he was a kshatriya, he was a king, but then he became a bhakta, almost like you can say a bhakta, no, and it turned into Buddhism.
that's
So
exactly.
that is not changing his swabhava, it is changing his
No,
way of looking at things and like that.
Ballu, he was a king, he was a
King,
Kshatriya.
yes.
But just now I told you that Kshatriya, and this is not the, he was a king, but his nature would have been something. Do all Kshatriyas, okay, do they have the same nature? Not necessarily. The
Ah,
Swabhava is different from the profession in which you are engaged. It is different.
hmm.
So that's the whole point. It's a very interesting.
Ranganath,
Yeah. Tell me.
can we say that though his profession, like though he was a Kshatriya as by profession, his swabha might have been of a Brahmin,
Yes, that is possible. I think
and
so.
that's why through his work he went and discovered his swabhava, and
Ah,
then he left the outer profession.
yeah,
Because it's
that's
not easy to know our swabhava, isn't it?
no. It's impossible to know when you are in ignorance. That's the whole point. You don't know
Like
yourself.
I may
Exactly.
be a doctor, but that may not be my actually swabhava. I have to discover that, and that I have to discover, I think, through what I'm doing.
Exactly. This is what happened to Modi. No, you know that, no? He actually he was inclined towards a spiritual life, and he went twice, not once, to the Ramakrishna mission. And there was a very wise man there who told him that no, you can't become a monk. I won't allow you to become a monk. There is something else destined for you. He told him very clearly. I don't know if you know this, but this is what happened. He tried to become a monk twice. He went to the Ramakrishna mission. Even when he was a 16-year-old boy, he went away to the Himalayas for 2 years after his marriage. Because in those days you obeyed the parents. Whatever marriage they fixed for you, you accepted. So he accepted. But he after that he told his wife very clearly that look, I am not meant for married life, so we will have hardly any relations. But and then he went away to the Himalayas for 2 years, and then he came back. And then he was helping with his father. He was in the tea shop. Okay, we know that now. He was the chai wala. And then he went to the Ramakrishna mission and tried to join to become a monk, but he was denied. So here is a man who wants to be a Brahmin, but he's meant to be a Kshatriya. He is supposed to be the prime minister of the country. That man who saw that and told him that, obviously is at a very high level of consciousness. He could see that this man is meant for something else. Okay. So, yeah, what Archana is saying is absolutely correct. We don't know our Swabhava. We have to discover it. That's exactly.
Yeah, because in our Indian tradition, it is coming, hereditary now at least.
That is absolutely wrong. But Pallu, again I remind you that the outer nature, okay, is not the Swabhava.
Hmm.
The Swabhava is the nature of the soul which the divine has granted to you. Okay?
Hmm.
Yeah. But there is a link with the caste system. There is a link. But that belongs to the soul. The soul. Each soul is assigned a different work. No? That is the whole point. Okay, it's a very interesting question. And you have to go, it's a very deep concept. It's not a, yeah. Archana, you want to say something?
Yeah, what I'm saying is probably the caste system was for the soul, but we used it for our
Practical purposes.
outer,
Absolutely, you are absolutely right.
yeah,
And that is the
for our
misunderstanding.
individual ego.
Exactly, exactly. That is the big distortion that have happened. That was exactly the thing. The two are not the same. The caste system is for the soul, the nature with which you are born. And that is the reason why the Gita, actually it confused me. The Gita is saying, better even death in your own swabhava and swadharma, rather than success in another's paradharma. He says that. And this is, what is he saying? I couldn't understand. But
Janani.
yeah, it's a soul nature. It's a soul nature, not the nature of the body mind life. Okay, that's the thing. There is a difference between the soul nature and the body mind life. No? The body mind life nature is different. That's a prakriti. And they are talking of the Purusha, the nature of the Purusha. Okay, so think about it. It's a very interesting question. Shall we read the next? We have got 10 minutes. Yeah, we can read the next para. The modern idea. Archana, you'll read?
Yeah, I'm reading.
Okay, the modern idea.
The modern idea of a common obligation in all the main departments of human activity has its advantages. It helps to greater solidarity, unity, and fullness in the life of the community, and a more all round development of the complete human being as opposed to the endless divisions and over specialization and the narrowing and artificial shackling of the life of the individual to which the Indian system eventually led. But it has also its disadvantages, and in certain of its developments, the true logical application of it has led to grotesque and disastrous absurdities. This is evident enough in the character of the modern war. From the idea of a common military obligation binding on every individual to defend and fight for the community by which he lives and profits, has arisen the system by which the whole manhood of the nation is hurled into the bloody trench to slay and be slain thinkers, artists, philosophers, priests, merchants, artisans, all torn from their natural functions, the whole life of the community disorganized, reason and conscience overridden, even the minister of religion who is salaried by the state or called by his function to preach the gospel of peace and love, forced to deny his creed and become a butcher of his fellow men. Not only are conscience and nature violated by the arbitrary fiat of the military state, but national defense carried to an insane extreme makes its best attempt to become a national suicide.
In insane extreme makes its best attempt to become a national suicide. There's so much of irony in that, no? And the language is so interesting. You're trying to kill the whole nation by including everybody, your children, your innocent people, the laymen, everybody, those who are scholars, kill them. So this is exactly what we discussed earlier, the modern idea of war. Okay, that distinction which the Indians had made earlier, that war is something to be, it is something you have to fight for on grounds of truth, and it is not based on hate and self-interest, and it is something we are fighting for truth. Whereas today modern war, selfishness and plunder and rape and violence with tremendous hatred and with desire to kill. So this is what he's saying in the para, which we have already discussed. But we have got 7-8 minutes, so we'll quickly go through. The modern idea, okay, of a common obligation in all the main departments of human activity has its advantages. So simply saying, even the modern idea has got its advantages. And what is that advantage? It helps to greater solidarity, unity, and fullness in the life of the community, and a more all-round development of the complete human being, as opposed to the endless divisions and over-specialization and the narrowing and artificial shackling of the life of the individual, to which the Indian system eventually led. Eventually led, okay? Note that. So it is not that the Shudra cannot be a friend with a Vaishya or a Brahmin. It's not that. But it led to that. Because when you make distinctions, oh, you are fit for work, you are fit only to sell goods, you are fit only to govern, okay? So these distinctions in man's ignorance, they lead to division and difference. And when you are an egoistic person, naturally there is an overestimation and an underestimation, and there is a sense of superiority and inferiority. That, Srimati is saying, is not there in Europe. Everybody is part of society. So its advantage is there, that there is more unity. And that's true, na? Even in today's India, okay, this, some of the things are shocking. For instance, I have read many times that even in Tamil Nadu and even in Punjab it was there. Suppose a well had water in which only the Brahmins could take the water. The Shudras were not allowed to take water there. Okay? So it is horrible. Okay? In my own state, when I was there, I know my grandmother, okay? Not actually my grandmother, but my grandmother who brought up my mother. She used to, if she even in the road crossed the shadow of a Shudra, she would have to come home first and have a bath. It's so horrible. In Tamil Nadu, even today, okay?
Even today, yes. In the
Even-
village, they have a Sudra society. The road can't be used by both the community.
Absolutely.
Where near lake they have in this Utturai
Yeah.
village.
I know. And they build a wall to keep the Sudras separate from themselves. Okay? And even in tea shops, okay, they have different set of glasses for the Shudras.
Mm.
I mean, this is what Sridhar is mentioning here, that it need not have led to this sort of division in the society. The caste system need not have led. But if you are egoless and you are wise,
Monday you give me
Yeah.
Otu and probiotic for 5 days.
whereas
It is not there in the town.
if you have an ego, then this is what happens. It leads you. Whereas in Europe, that idea is not there. That's what he's saying. Has it advantages? It helps to greater solidarity, unity, and fullness in the life of the community, and a more all-round development of the complete human being, as opposed to the endless divisions and over specialization and the narrowing and artificial shackling of the life of the individual, to which the Indian system eventually led. Now, note the word eventually, it is so important. It need not have been like that in the earlier days. Okay? So, but it has also its disadvantages. And in certain of its developments too, the too logical application of it has led to grotesque and disastrous absurdities. So, this is very interesting. We come back to the idea of dualities in the physical world. Okay, everything has got two aspects, a negative and a positive aspect. Any one thing you take, you will see that it's got advantages and disadvantages. Nothing is perfectly valid and true in the physical world because it is subject to dualities. Okay? Even kindness. Now, that's a wonderful thing, a very good example. Even take kindness, okay, which is something so good. But if you take kindness to its extreme limit, you start applying that to even people who you don't need to do that. You don't need to be kind to them. So it's a misapplication. Okay. So that is what Chandra is saying, that the dualities are there, and it leads to grotesque and disastrous absurdities. Okay. So this is evident enough in the character of the modern war. Okay. From the idea of common military obligation binding on every individual to defend and fight for the community by which he lives and profits, has arisen the system by which the whole manhood of the nation is hurled into the bloody trench to slay and be slain. Thinkers, artists, philosophers, priests, merchants, artisans, all torn from their natural functions, the whole life of the community disorganized, reason and conscience overridden. Even the minister of religion, who is salaried by the state or called by his function to preach the gospel of peace and love, and forced to deny his creed and become a butcher of his fellow men. So Serdar puts it so graphically. Okay, this is what happens in the West. Okay, of course, uh, by extension, all over the world. Even today, it is like that. Even in India, and become a butcher of the following. Not only are conscience and nature violated by the arbitrary fiat. Okay, by the way, the word is pronounced fiat. Fiat means an order, a kingly order or a royal order, which has to be obeyed, and there is no argument or logic or given to it. Okay, it's just an order which has to be obeyed. But the word arbitrary is added to that. All fights are arbitrary without reason. Not that every time it is irrational, no, but it's a for which no reason is given. Arbitrary fight of the military state. But national defense, carried to an insane extreme, makes its best attempt to become a national suicide. Sundar is purposely exaggerating the language to make you see the absurdity of war today. Okay. There is an attempt, and those, when the bombs are being thrown on a building, you can't say that my bomb will kill only adults and not children. It doesn't happen. But that is the insane extreme and makes its best attempt. Look at the language. It makes its best attempt to become a national suicide. So we stop here today. Okay. And Indian civilization.
Before we stop, Rangada, I just want to share one incident. We were talking of caste system, and this is just before I came to Pondicherry.
Okay.
I used to be in the hospital. I was returning with on one auto, shared auto. I and the sweeper, who is supposed to be the scheduled caste there, we were traveling together. She told I am also going that way, so we came together, and we were sitting on the auto. The auto was coming. It stopped at a stop, and a lady got up. Then she peeped and she got down. I couldn't understand what happened. Then she told me, the lady who was accompanying me, I don't know, Malti, I think. She told me, "Na Didi, you know why, madam, why she got down?" I told, "What happened?" I was that fool. She told, "No, she saw me, na, that's why she got down." And they know it. Even today, I'm talking of 7 years back.
Yes, that's right. It is that bad. Yeah, I told you, even if you, my grandmother, when she used to even cross a shadow, if it falls on you, finished. You become impure.
Those days, Rangada, that's what.
That is one of the reasons of the downfall of our Indian culture, no?
Absolutely. That's right. But it was imposed on you. But of course, the British are not...
Long before British also this was there, no?
Yes. Why? Because of ego. When you are in ignorance, you start associating. This is superior, that is inferior. So that automatically comes in. But the idea, the principle behind it is absolutely true. There is the truth behind it. But in the physical world, all truth becomes untruth. That's all.
Luckily, Rangada, in Jainism, we don't have any caste system because we consider our view start from the soul point of view.
So that's why I like Jainism so much. There are some wonderful ideas in Jainism. But the one thing...
Actually, Jainism...
Some of them are also extreme, also.
Yes, just like they don't wear clothes.
No, and they sweep the floor and as if now the microbes will move away. That is very stupid, I think.
Essentially,
Actually, the things are not well explained in our religion.
Yeah, that's right. There is all ideas
not explained, so that's why the misunderstanding is coming up and the new generation is avoiding.
Yeah, that is always the thing, misunderstanding. No explanations are given.
Because of ignorance. That's right.
No, exactly what Rangada just now told, little
ignorance.
Yeah.
That anything which comes to the physical level gets distorted
That's right.
Yes.
because of the ignorance, because it mixes with ignorance. And actually, Jainism and Buddhism came up so strongly because of the caste system. So naturally,
Yes.
they fought the
Yes.
caste system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, Rangada.
Okay,
Thank you.
Rangada.
Au revoir, everybody.
Bonne journée.
Au revoir.